Welcome back to episode number 2 of Building the Franchise with the New England Patriots. In this episode, we're going to finish up the preseason and make our final cuts and adjustments to the roster before heading into week 1 of the regular season. As you can see, we have a couple big decisions to make this week. We have to cut 2 players and get the roster down to the correct size, so we're going to head on over to the roster screen and figure out who's not making the Patriots team this season. We already know right off the bat that this first set of cuts here in week number 2 is really not going to be that difficult. There are only 2 guys we're required to get rid of, and there are a lot of positions still on the team that are overfilled and overstaffed, such as running back. We have 7 running backs right now, and there's really no reason to ever go into the season with 7. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of 2 of those guys. We're going to go ahead and get rid of DJ Foster, the rookie out of Arizona State. He's really not that bad of a player, and it would be fun to try to build him up, but we have a lot of players at other positions that we'd rather build up, and running back is really not a position of need for us right now, so we're going to go ahead and move away from DJ Foster. So we're going to go ahead and get a little bit ahead of the game here. We're going to go ahead and cut Brandon Bolden and Tyler Gaffney. Bolden has actually been on the team for a while now, but he's yet to prove himself as a viable option in the run game, so we're going to go ahead and move away from him, as well as Tyler Gaffney. Tyler Gaffney, a young guy who hasn't been able to really find himself off of the practice squad. Each and every season since he's come in the league, he's been on the Patriots practice squad, but he's yet to be able to break away and end up on the starting roster. With the roster now meeting league requirements for preseason week number 2, we're going to move over to the weekly training, which we didn't get to touch on in the first episode. In the weekly training, there's 3 things we can mess with here. There's offensive game plan, defensive game plan, and focus players. For the offensive and defensive game plan, you get a little bit of insight into your upcoming opponent's tendencies and what you need to do to try to counter it. While it's still really early in the franchise right now, it's showing the Bears that they tend to zone blitz 39% of the time, and it wants us to focus on stick drill to counter it. While I do think that the tendencies are a neat feature that they've added into this, I really don't think we're going to go with that. We're going to go with more of who we want to develop, because at the end of the day, that's really what your game plan is all about, is getting experience for your players and helping develop them. Right now, we're looking to work on our offensive line and our running back, so we're going to go with the running hat count drill for offense, and for defense, we're going to run the cover 2 man drill, which focuses on the defensive back and linebackers. For our 3 focus players for the week, we're going to focus on the young rookie wide receiver Malcolm Mitchell out of Georgia, Kyle Friend, the center who we picked up at the beginning of the franchise and the beginning of this series, and Cyrus Jones, the rookie cornerback who's part of that very young, very talented defensive secondary. All 3 of these guys are going to get 100 experience points in addition to any experience that they earn from their normal game plan.
You know what that means? We got to get better today. What I want to know is, who's ready to work? I'm ready to work. Are you ready to work? If you are, then go out and prove it to me. Show me what you got. Let me tell you something. That was the best practice of the season. Not a single mental mistake. That's the type of practice championship teams have. Keep it up. Film room this afternoon, because today was a great practice. The coaching staff, we can't ask for much more. You guys consistently do that, and we are going to find ourselves in the playoffs. Good stuff.
So with gold in both the offensive and defensive game plan drills, and the starters coming away with 300 experience each, we're going to head over to the stats and check out the Bears players and see what we can do to scout for the upcoming game. So after their first preseason game, Cutler and Hoyer are both at 50% completions with no touchdowns and no interception. And with only 130 yards between the 2 quarterbacks, we'll be looking to keep the touchdown column the same while adding a whole lot of stats to interceptions. And while the Bears attempted 24 passes in the first game, they attempted 29 rushes between 5 players, with Carey leading the way with 11 attempts, 41 yards, and no touchdowns. For receptions, the Bears have Wilson and Bellamy leading the team with 3 receptions each, with Wilson taking the definite lead with 51 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, the Bears snagged 2 interceptions with Tracy Porter and Kyle Fuller having 1 each. While the Bears definitely appear beatable, they're not a team to be overlooked, even with a loss in their first preseason game. Depth, especially in the secondary, is going to be key to a Patriots victory.
2 teams will need their quarterbacks to step up and lead their offenses on the gridiron today. It's Cutler's Bears going up against Brady's Patriots.
And with the help of Jimmy Garoppolo's 4 turnovers, 2 by way of fumble and 2 interceptions, the Bears topple the Patriots 23-14. Taking a look at the halfback position battle from episode 1, Dion Lewis had 40 yards compared to Garrett Blunt's 3. For our young wide receiver battle, Devin Street led the team with 63 yards. He had an excellent game for the Patriots. He even snagged a touchdown. For kick and punt returns, Sankey and White had very comparable games, 25 and 21 yards, with neither returner having a breakaway return. And that's going to do it for preseason week number 2. Now we move to week number 3 against the Carolina Panthers. As you move further and further along throughout the preseason and toward the regular season, the cuts and decisions you have to make get a lot harder. Sometimes there's guys that should make the team that can't just because there's players ahead of them that are more skilled at that position. A lot of times there are younger guys on the team who you hope to develop that don't actually make the team just based purely on the skill ahead of them, which is unfortunate, but at the same time there's always a team somewhere throughout the MBL that's going to need a player like that. And more often than not, if there's a player on your team that's a young guy who you're really kind of wanted to stick around and you have to end up cutting him, there's most likely going to be a team pick him up and they're going to put him on at least the second string, possibly even a starter. And while that doesn't necessarily help your team per se, it definitely helps the player himself. If he's just sitting on your bench, it really hurts his progression throughout his career. If another team picks him up and they make him a starter or a second string or something where he's going to get some kind of production going on, it's going to help him develop in the long run and be better off for that player. For our 5 cuts this week, we're going to get rid of 3 tight ends. We're going to release Joe Cardona, Michael Williams, and AJ Derby. All 3 of these guys are really just depth players behind Michael Bennett and Gronk, and there's really no reason to keep them around. All 3 of these guys are younger project players for another team, but they just really don't fit what the Patriots want to do in the future. We're also going to go ahead and release Anthony Johnson, the young defensive tackle. We're going to keep Vincent Valentine instead. And for the last cut for the week, we're going to release 4-year free safety Nate Ebner. As for our game plan against the Panthers, we're going to work on the 3-on-3 rushing drill for offense and the cover 6 defense drill. And we're also going to put Kyle Friend, DeAndrew White, and Cyrus Jones as our 3 focus players for the week. With such a poor rushing performance in week 1 and week 2 of the preseason, we definitely want to work on that some more and try to get some more experience for those young guys, especially the offensive line. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any highlights for this game this week, but the Patriots did hold on to win against the defending Super Bowl runner-up Carolina Panthers 28-25. And with that, we're going to jump over to the final week of preseason and sign our practice squad and make sure our roster is good to go for the regular season. Here in the final week of the preseason, we have 10 players that we have to either release or sign to the practice squad. To be eligible for the practice squad, the players have to be young and they have to have very little actual game time experience. The first big decision we're going to make here is releasing Matthew Slater. He's a huge part of the special teams in New England, but at the same time he's getting older and he's going to start to decline, and it's really not worth his salary to have him there just for a special teams position. We're also going to release the rookie left tackle Clay DeBoard and third-year left guard Chris Baker out of Nevada. And rather than cutting David Andrews, we're going to sign him to the practice squad so we have the backup depth we need if we need to go into the practice squad and sign him if somebody gets hurt. Rookie right outside linebacker Quentin Gauss is also going to be moved to the practice squad, as well as the 23-year-old cornerback Justin Coleman. With enough depth in the safety position, we're going to go ahead and cut Vinny Sunseri, as well as move strong safety Jordan Richards to the practice squad. For the final roster decision, right guard Trey Jackson will also be moved to the practice squad. And with very little time remaining before the league advances, we're going to continue with the 3-on-3 offensive running drill, as well as change it up to the cover 2-man defensive drill, and keep our 3 focus players the same as last week. The Patriots finished the preseason 3-1 with a win against the Giants 24-18. Thanks for watching, guys. That's going to finish up episode number 2 of Building the Franchise. On episode 3, we'll have information and highlights from weeks 1 through 4 of the regular season. And if there's anything you guys would like to see more of or for me to be a little more in depth, please just let me know down in the comments. Also, as the series moves deeper into Madden 17, I'll be looking toward your guys' opinions on if anyone should be re-signed or signed, as well as asking for insider opinions into key franchise management decisions. And be sure to check us out at any of the links in the description.